Okay, so today I'd just like to have a little bit of a chat about goal setting, changing goals, and setting realistic goals as well. So it's good to keep circling back and re-evaluating where you're at, where you're going, whether the plan is still a good plan, whether it still makes sense, whether you still want to do it. I think that's a key factor that's maybe worth spending a bit of time thinking about. Is this something you actually want to do? Are the reasons for you doing it just totally extrinsic? I've picked a far too hilly route for this run. I'm already out of breath. Because really a goal isn't going to be properly successful if your reasons for doing it aren't predominantly intrinsic, if they're not coming from within you and it's not a goal for you and your own personal fulfillment. It's going to be much harder to achieve it in the first place or even get close. Now when it comes to my own personal goals, the landscape of them is morphing quite a bit because I've come to a number of realizations that mean my old goals are not worth pursuing anymore, in the sense that they're not really what I'm fully passionate about, and I wouldn't be continuing to pursue them for personal fulfillment, and therefore they would go quite badly. I've mentioned in a few other videos briefly that I'm pretty sure at this point that my genetic baseline running talent, it's not very high. I'm not starting off from a particularly high point. And for the vast majority of people, that is the reality. That's fairly normal. And I'm fairly certain that this is the case because there are people who are the same height as me that I know who have been training for less time, or they run less mileage generally. Their training isn't as consistent, and they're faster than me, significantly so. Or they'll be able to put in what is a very basic training block and run a 1:45 half or a 45-minute 10k, which I can't do. I need a lot more work put in to get to those marks. I'm not there yet. And for a while, seeing that and kind of realizing that was really frustrating, because it feels unfair, right? You're putting in, as far as you can tell, this is the other thing, you don't see everything from social media and just sort of seeing people occasionally. As far as you can tell, you're putting in more work and you're slower. Are you doing something wrong? Are you just shit? Is there any point? All these things start to sort of circle in your head, and it makes it seem not worth pursuing at all. I have had a few quite frank conversations with myself on this subject. Realistically, long distance running is not me batting to the best of my ability. It's not me going after the sport that most suits my build and physique. So of course it's going to be harder. I'm kind of working against nature to some extent. So I am short and I'm strong. I've always been pretty strong. My genetic level of base just power output has always been solid ever since I was a kid. I used to help out on the farm and stuff back in the village growing up, and that kind of thing was never especially difficult. I could do a lot of that strength-based stuff fairly easily, and that's always been the case. This is generally a really bad choice of route for trying to talk and move at the same time. So with the information that I'm short, I'm strong, really, like genetically, I'd be much better at 60-metre sprinting, 60-metre hurdles, combat sports, hockey, like all these things that require quite a lot of power and benefit from having a shorter stature. So if I was genuinely only purely invested in performing at a high level, then yeah, maybe I'd do any of those things. But I want to run, and I want to run far, and I want to run a lot, and I want to go to cool places, see cool places, do interesting things up hills and mountains and all of that jazz. And if I can get statistically good at running along the way, then that would be great as well. But with all that information, it can't really be my end goal. I've never really gone through my like full sporting history before. So I ran track and cross country in school. I played hockey in school. I was a goalie. I was a good goalie. I could probably have taken a shot at playing for my county if I'd pursued the hockey route, but I didn't want to. Wasn't really interesting enough for me. After school, at university, I kind of didn't really run that much through uni. I did parkour and free running as my main sport through university, alongside some Muay Thai, which is a combat sport, martial art, and I started weightlifting a bit in uni, and I started doing a bit of bouldering here and there, nothing particularly regular. So I didn't really help my future self by not doing any consistent running. So I've got a lot more work to do now. But I did all that through uni, and then after university moved down to Exeter with my partner because he did a PhD down there. Carried on kind of with parkour as the main sport, but I did get like enormously depressed after we moved down there, and I kind of didn't do anything for a year. And kind of then, when I realised I needed to sort myself out, got diagnosed with ADHD, etc. Got myself back on track, started doing exercise regularly. I was running a couple of times a week, weightlifting a couple of times a week, back on parkour training 2 or 3 times a week. So I was back into a good regular exercise routine, but I still wasn't running a lot. Parkour was still the focus. However, during that time, I did get what is still my current 5k PB. 2019, I ran 22:31. I haven't topped that yet, for various reasons. And I ran my first half marathon, which I think I did in like 2:06 off very, very poor training. So it was sort of at that point, I think I started to maybe feel that I wanted to move back towards running as more of a focus. Although I don't know if I'd really realised that at the time. We moved up to Sheffield not long before COVID kicked off. So through lockdown, I wasn't doing like much running at all, because for our like daily mandated exercise outing, I was opting to go for a walk with Greg, my partner, instead, because I felt like a nice thing to do. And I didn't really get back to running until after COVID lockdowns were easing off. So during the lockdowns, I was doing bits of parkour. Greg and I might go out to one of sort of our like little local spots that we could do bits and pieces at and do a few things, do kind of just to get our exercise in that way. So really, it wasn't until after the lockdowns eased that I discovered fell running, and started to get into that and kind of found a real genuine love for it and just off-road running in general, and then discovered more about ultra running and decided this was something I was interested in, that I wanted to do, and at the time my goals started to evolve into running longer and longer, and eventually getting up to like 100 milers, cross the whole country type routes, doing the coast to coast. These are the kind of goals that started to settle into my head. I just wanted to run further and further, as far as I could go. As I've run more, as I've become a coach, as I've raced more, this is the thing that's changed quite a bit now. I still want to run far, do still enjoy doing the ultra distance stuff, but I think I have limits as to what I think will be fun and enjoyable for me personally, and I no longer have any real interest in trying to push to the like 100 mile and beyond point. I don't think that will be fun for me, and I don't want to run through the night. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in finding those personal limits. I love watching other people do it, but for me, a good day out, 50k, 50 miler on nice trails that's enjoyable and fun, I think that's fine for me in terms of ultra distance. So I no longer have aspirations of running the spine, of running the coast to coast. Like maybe I'd still do the coast to coast when I'm a bit older as a bit of an adventure, but in terms of like becoming like a higher level ultra running performance athlete, any vague aspirations I may have had in that sense have definitely died because I enjoy myself so much when I'm kind of taking my time with it a bit more. Like Haworth Hobble was a good example. I was on for my goal pace, but I was getting very hot, and I knew that if I kept pushing I'd have a miserable day, so I slowed down, ran with Harriet, and I had a great time. Like, it was such a good day. I cannot describe how much fun I had, and I wouldn't have had that if I was like pushing it. And I just think those kind of longer trail races for me are more about the overall experience and just the day itself. What I have discovered over the last few years is that I do enjoy running fast. I really enjoy running fast. So things like getting faster at the shorter trail races, getting a good 10k time, half marathon, are things that I'm now a lot more interested in than I was. And even I think working on my 5k time, like historically I didn't really enjoy racing 5k because it felt awful and it was shit and not very fun. And it's sort of through this realisation that I've realised I have this, what essentially amounts to a genetic deficit when it comes to the running side of things, and that it's going to take a lot of work for me to get what could be considered quite respectable times over those distances and respectable performances in local trail races and things. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be very competitive at fell running because I'm just so bad at the downhill. Banned myself from doing fell champs races because I just get overtaken by about 30-40 people on every downhill until I run out of people to be overtaken by. So that sort of thing I think is not really in my wheelhouse. But in realising that I need to do a lot of work to get to the same place as other people, I have realised I've got a lot of capacity for improvement. Now that I've got a couple of years of consistent training under my belt, those improvements are happening pretty steadily. So with another 5 years consistent training, 10 years consistent training, I think I could be a pretty good age group runner. And that's sort of where the goals are now. Like, I want to have fun, I want to enjoy myself doing silly hilly routes like this and having a good time in nature, but I do want to run quickly as well. And I also want to have fun days out doing a 50k or a 50 miler with my friends or whatever. Like, there has to be some compromise, and I understand that I'm not going to be able to be some kind of ridiculous 10k runner if I'm also doing 1 or 2 50k's a year. But if I work hard enough and I put in enough training, I can have the aerobic capacity and the strength to be able to do all those things without getting injured, to be able to do all those things and enjoy myself doing them. I'm just going to interrupt my chatter. This is an old Motte and Bailey. It's very secluded. There is a permissive footpath that goes around it. I've been around a couple of times. But yeah, Old Hill Fort, ideal location for it. There's also a grave in the churchyard that is supposedly the grave of Little John. Who knows whether it genuinely is the Little John of legend, but supposedly it's his grave. Just gonna carry on chatting while the church bells are going off in the background. Yeah, so I think because I've got a lot of capacity for improvement and I'm strong and I've got like a decade of strength training under me, I've got a really good like platform to build from. So I can play into my strengths because I've got like this big potential capacity and my body's very resilient. I've got the ability to put in a lot of mileage. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be experimenting with that over the next few years, kind of seeing how high I can get the mileage basically around life. So capacity for big mileage potentially, and I'm strong, so I'm good on hilly routes because I can push uphill where other people can't, because I've got the aerobic capacity already. Like I see it in the Trunts when I'm racing races like the Trunts. I can really push uphill and I can keep pushing all the way up the hill because my aerobic capacity is good enough to allow me to do that, and my legs are strong enough to output that power. So I know I'm strong uphill. I know that's something that's just going to keep improving. And then if I can work on my weaker areas, my downhill, if I can get faster over the flat, then it all starts to kind of come together. But it's just going to take time, and that's kind of the thing that I think took me the longest to realise. I did go through a period of frustration that I just wasn't fast. And I, to some extent, couldn't understand like why I wasn't fast and other people were. And it was annoying, it was irritating. And now that I've realised I just need to work really hard, I feel a lot better about that, because there's a way I can kind of work on it and a way I can solve it. And really, I am looking forward to that challenge. Genuinely really looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what happens over the next few years. And I'm excited to see where I can get my times, whether they end up being good or not. In some sense, this doesn't matter. I'm just really looking forward to sort of seeing what I can do in the areas that I'm interested in, the areas I want to work on. And I will continue to do ultra stuff, but it's just going to be to less of a degree than my initial plans. I'll do 50k's, do some 50 milers, but I'm not going to push myself beyond that unless I find a particular race that looks exciting and that I want to do. Alright, back at the car. I'll wrap it up here. So that would be, I guess, my main takeaway is it's important to reevaluate your goals, where you want to go, what you want to do, what you're actually interested in, and just make sure that you are still working at something that you want to invest your time and effort in. Like, it might be in 5 years' time I want to run ultras again, and I'll switch my goal towards that. I think that probably won't be the case. Like, I do have an end goal of running a very lofty road marathon time, but that scares me, and I'm not going to do a lot of road marathons. I might do like one when I'm 35 and one when I'm 40, more as kind of like personal fulfillment and curiosity. I don't want to run a lot of road marathons. But I'm looking forward to having a lot of fun over those kind of sub-ultra trail distances, seeing what I can do with my 5k time, 10k time, half marathon time. Those kinds of things excite me. And just like having fun in local fell races and trail races, and being part of the local community. I think that's a lot easier to do when I'm not focusing on just running a ridiculously far distance a couple of times a year. So yeah, the channel is going to look like a lot of running. Mileage is going to be high. Like, I'm going to climb it up and see where I can kind of sit it at and see what that does over the coming years. Yeah, be exciting. And I hope some of you stick along for the ride, and we'll catch you in the next one.